Now, on this next one, I had a very, very interesting time, just preparing for it, especially with my colleague, Dr. Paul Kangede, who will be joining us at the end of this report. But then let's get it first. Global fast foods restaurants in Africa are lagging behind their counterparts overseas on animal welfare. A report released by World Animal Protection reveals 7 global fast food restaurants that have set up shop in Africa do not adhere to the same animal welfare standards for their Africa market. The Pecking Order Report 2021 ranks fast food restaurants globally on how they are performing on their commitment, ambition, and transparency on chicken welfare in their supply chains. The Pecking Order assesses companies via publicly available information on 3 areas. One is how important the welfare of chicken is to the company, timeline that demonstrates the objectives, targets and promises a company has made to improve chicken welfare and when they will meet them, and how clear the company is about living up to its promise.
Essentially what is happening is that at the source market where the headquarters of the organization is, there's some level of reporting, but the franchises in Africa are not reporting, and that has given us certain challenges in identifying the situation on the ground. These attempts at ensuring that certain animal welfare activities are undertaken. And so far we've seen organizations like KFC and Subway who are undertaking activities both internationally and locally and driving that agenda to certain levels. We've started by ranking the 8 big fast food restaurants. We are hoping to expand the ranking into retailers, supermarkets, and producers in the coming years. But the idea is to raise awareness amongst the consumers so that consumers understand that there are aspects around for animal welfare that they need to ensure that the retailer or fast food restaurant that they are working with is able to manage and is reporting adequately about. Animal welfare is important and critical for the productivity of the animal. It's also important and critical because it determines the quality of product that comes from the animal. If the animal is mishandled, the quality of the product tends to deteriorate. And that then means that certain aspects around food safety are also compromised.
Very well then, as promised, that story right there sets the pace for our discussion today with my colleague, Dr. Paul Kangede, who is a vet who found his way into a newsroom. He's going to tell us how, but that's not important as what we want to discuss about animal health today. Dr. Kangede, good to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Branch.
First of all, my brother, what else was said in this report that perhaps the viewer needs to understand?
The viewer needs to understand that it is in their prerogative or it is their mandate to know what they are consuming. Because if you consume chicken from just a food restaurant that you don't know the health of the chicken you're consuming, it will finally affect your health, and thereby you may fall sick and therefore you lose value for your money. Alternatively, the producers need to know, producers of chicken need to know that it is very prudent to raise animals in healthy environments so that they avoid use of drugs and keeping chicken in environments where they fall sick, because ultimately they find their way into plates of relatives and friends, which is for the benefit of all, raising them in a healthy environment.
Great. And so what are some of the tendencies, or rather the proper animal farming, tendencies that farmers should adhere to in the country so that those recommendations that are given there, we're going to get to them in a bit, but what are some of the tendencies that are seen today in animal farming, particularly with poultry here in Kenya?
Some of the things we have seen when we walked around the country is that majority of the farmers tend to keep their chicken in cages. When they are caged like that, they are not given freedom to walk around. They are not given freedom to patch, that is rest their feet. Back in the village where they patch on some pieces of wood just to relax. Also, they are not given a chance to dust bathe, which is very important for their health. And when they are caged like that, they are stressed. And when stress comes in, there is tendency of them falling sick And when they fall sick, people go to the vet pharmacies to get drugs, which they pump into these animals. But if they are kept in environments where they are where they are free, where they are not crowding, it is possible to avoid use of those drugs, and thereby we produce healthy chicken. And when we consume them, we also become healthy as well.
Great. So there's this discussion that goes on about the rearing of the hybrid chicken versus the indigenous chicken. Depending on the demand that we have today in the hospitality world, I mean, the KFCs of this world, the Chicken Inns of this world, Domino's, Burger King, and all these others, they need this chicken on continuous supply to at least meet the demands of the industry in terms of providing quality meals. But then you as a vet recommends the growing or the rearing of the indigenous breed. So talk to us about where we strike the balance really in the industry. What should the farmer go for, and what should inform the farmer's decision towards that?
Thank you so much, Branji, for that question. The guiding principle to a farmer is doing things right. Whether they are doing the kienyeji production or doing the commercial ones, that is the broilers or the rears, they should adhere to the good husbandry practices. That is vaccinating at the right time, proper housing, feeding them the correct way. When they fall sick, they call in a vet. And when they are kept in such environments, there are no incidences of them falling sick. And the difficult part of them falling sick is because, one, they are going to use drugs. When they fall sick, their productivity reduces, and even the time that they take to recover costs the farmer, because if they were supposed to sell in 6 weeks' time for broilers, for example, they may take longer to achieve the weight required, and therefore it is a loss to a farmer. So keeping them in a healthy way means that they produce better and they produce more for the benefit both of the farmer and the person who is going to consume them.
Lastly, you had a look at that report exclusively. What are some of the recommendations that the report comes up with in terms of farming and supply of chicken and chicken products?
The report, the Pecking Order 2021 report, as given out by the World Animal Protection, recommends that it is good for the consumers to demand for healthy products from the fast food restaurants that they go to. And once that demand is driven from the consumer, it goes to the fast food business people, and then that person goes to the producer. They tell the people who supply to them this chicken that our customers are demanding this type of a product, and that is what we want you to give us. So when demand is driven that way along the value chain, everybody wins and we live in a healthy country for all of us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for setting the record straight on the chicken production and rearing in this country. Of course, now you're more aware that you need to take a keen, interest in what you eat in the fast food restaurants before you eat it, so that your decisions actually inform the production of these things in the value chain. We now want to go back to our stories, making headlines right here. We have been speaking to Dr. Kang'ethe, who is a vet and a journalist who found himself in the newsroom. Thank you so much for those insights. Now, the Council